Hello and welcome. I'm Terry Likes. Thank you so much for joining us here on Communication Connection. The Department of Communication has 5 different concentrations, and for this episode we're going to focus on MSU Theater. Part of MSU Theater's mission is to serve the community, and specifically with its fall children's production. And we're going to talk about that today. And joining us as part of an Artist-in-Residence program, a big initiative for the department, is Hollywood effects artist, a veteran of Hollywood. Tim Baker is our guest here on Communication Connection. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about your background before we start talking specifically about the fall children's production.
Well, I have a background in theater. I went to school for theater. I traveled around doing a lot of summer stock for about 10 years or so, and then I moved to Los Angeles, and I started doing special makeup effects, special props, production design. I ended up with a very large shop and a big crew, and we worked on just hundreds of movies and commercials and things, and it was a really good time. And since then, I've sort of semi-retired and moved to Mississippi, so it's been a crazy run.
Well, the fall children's production involves a collaboration with the Northern Gulf Institute down in your neck of the woods, and it involves a Sea Turtle Saga, so I think the kids will really enjoy that. But I think what's really going to make it unique and something that has the theater faculty and students really excited is a giant puppet build. Yes, we said puppets. And how do you do that for a big stage such as what MSU Theater has in McComas Hall? So tell us a little bit about this process.
Well, there's many puppets to make. There'll be several operators for a lot of them. Some of them will just be single costume. We basically have to pull together all kinds of materials and processes, from costuming to sculpting, fabrication, fiberglass, using foams and plywoods, and then we'll do some of the animatronics and controls will be rod controls with cables, and so it's going to be complicated. But I'm really looking forward to getting up there and working with some of the students. We'll see what we can put together.
Well, MSU Theater has a long tradition and historical success with its fall children's play, and I know they're looking forward to working with you, and we're happy to have you play a role. Tell us about, you've already been to campus as kind of a pre-visit to meet with the faculty and the students, so tell us about how things have been going as far as the pre-production work and your pre-meetings you've had with the faculty.
Well, they've been great. I met the staff, the rest of the staff, the designers and the directors, all the people, and then I went to several of the classrooms to talk to some of the students, and we all talked about the project and how many different things we're going to try and do, and how to get it all put together. But it's a really nice plant. I mean, the theater's really well equipped, and I'm looking forward to working with all the staff there. I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Well, for those who don't know, the Fall Children's Play usually brings in hundreds of students from around the region. The McComas Hall Theater seats over 400, including a balcony and a very large stage and a very large behind-the-scenes scene shop for building things like this, where you will be working with the students. Assistant Professor Tanya Hayes is directing and been a major part of this production. She talked about how you've worked all over the world as far as your background. So before we get to some of the things you'll be building here, let's take a look at your portfolio, and you can tell us some, as we bring up some images from your background here working and creating a dinosaur. Tell us about how this comes about.
Well, this one is for a really great charity. It's called Magic Wheelchair, and I've been working with them for about 5 years, and we just we have a child who's stuck in a wheelchair, and we build some crazy, complicated, really fun costumes for the wheelchair and for the kid. And then they usually have a big opening, or they'll do it at a Comic-Con or something like that. This kid particularly loved Jurassic Park, so we built him a dinosaur that pulled him around in a cart. And it's a fantastic time.
And we can see from this one here that certainly the size and the scope of a project like this.
Yeah. And that's just styrofoam. I worked with several other sculptors. I hired usually just among my friends because they were, we've all been doing this for so long. And we knocked that out in just about 4 days. Just sculpted out of foam and then painted it to look like bronze. It's supposed to be half of the Statue of Liberty head. I think it was for an episode of Castle. It used to be on, I think it was on ABC.
Yes.
But, so it's a lot of those shows. There's another magic wheelchair. This girl was fantastic. She zoomed all around in that. She wanted to be Aquaman, so we made her an Aquaman.
This is certainly one of my favorites, seeing the delight of the child in this production. And I think what really is unique about theater, and especially when it's targeted for children, is to see the faces light up when you look at the audience. I remember Melanie Harris, our costume director, told me one time that a child came in to see one of our previous productions, had never seen a play before, and said, "I've never seen live television before," and that was her reaction. I got a big kick out of it. So seeing these types of images for you certainly has to be heartwarming and gratifying.
So much fun. It's some of the most fulfilling work I've ever done, and met so many great people. I probably met more industry professionals doing these charity things than I ever did working in movies, because you're always alone in your shop. It's 2 a.m, you're alone mixing plaster again. But these, you're out working with other professionals, and everyone's just throwing in everything they can think of. It's a great time. I hope that working on this production will be a lot of that same, where the people will be able to throw in their own ideas, and we can really get some stuff going.
Well, you mentioned, we saw some of the size and the scope of these projects. You're going to be on campus for roughly 30 days, and you need to build 12 of these giant puppets, is my understanding. How do you do that? What's it like, the enormity of the scope of a project like that in a short amount of time?
Luckily I come from the movie business, and that is every job. It seems like they never have enough time, and so you're always working long hours. This is going to be a little better because there's a lot of talented people there, the designers and costumers, and everyone is really focused. And so it's not just me coming up and doing everything. I'm hopefully going to be working with a lot of the students, showing them all these processes, how to problem solve, and how to come up with ways to make things work. And the staff seems really excited as well.
Well, something that most people don't realize is Theatre MSU recently concluded a production. Final show was a Sunday matinee, and then that evening they're breaking down that set, and by Monday they're beginning the set building for the next show. So the faculty and the students are quickly behind the scenes maneuvering from one to the next. And as just a general audience member like myself, if you come to the play, you don't realize what it takes behind the scenes to pull all of this off, and the time and the effort involved.
Yeah, it's thousands of hours.
I know that
I'm working on a production right now that will finish. It finishes next Friday, and then I'm on the road and heading up there to work that next day. So it's just busy.
I know that our faculty, will be, as you alluded to, working quite often, in burning the midnight oil, if you will, as far as working behind the scenes. So I might not often see them in the office at 8 a.m., but I know that they're there well past 5 p.m. Well, let's take a look at some of the images, at least as far as some of the design concepts for the Sea Turtle Saga. I know the play opens with the actual sea turtle. So tell us about this and how this is created.
Well, I'm gonna show them some of the processes that we can use to make this kind of thing. We've got materials, a lot of styrofoam. We'll be cutting that up with hot wires and sculpting it with tools. Then making a mold of that final shape. Then we've got to do an animatronic for the head, so that way the puppeteer can control the movement of the head and the flipping of the flippers and all those things. We have to figure all those out, and then make it something that they can actually wear. So like a lightweight fiberglass shell that they can actually act in. They're going to have to imbue this hunk of metal and plastic with some personality. Otherwise, the play's not going to be interesting. So I was trying to come up with different ways to do that. That's a great little squid. I guess it's an octopus actually, but we'll be thinking about it instead of just like a straight puppet that you don't see the puppeteers. I wanted to actually show have them all visible, so that part of their expressions can help the performance. So this little octopus, she'll be controlling, his little tentacles and things, and almost like a moving around, almost like a dance, and building it like a big hoop skirt kind of a thing.
So when we're talking about puppets, we're not actually talking about what most people might think, handheld puppets. We're talking about full-scale, very large, almost like bodysuits, if you will, where they have to actually perform in a different type of scenario. They might be used to putting on clothing type of costumes, but in this case, it's totally different.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing, but a lot of fun. And if we can make sure that the puppeteers get these things to work with, at least for a few days before the production starts, they can really figure out how to make them come to life.
I think we have a final scene here, an image of a whale that is one of the types of effects you're going to be producing for the students, and you're able to control them with your hands and the movement to make it seem as if you're animated. And what I think is great about it too is it forces the audience to really put into use their imagination, and they get kind of sucked into the production and they lose themselves in the performance that way. And I think that's part of the magic of theater, isn't it?
Yeah, I sure hope so. I have very high hopes. I think it's going to be an excellent production. I sat through on the first reading, and it was really fun.
Well, tell us a little bit about the play and what can we expect now that we know what we might see behind the scenes and actually on the stage.
It's a really nice story. I mean, a few of these very very odd sea creatures, ones that not everyone knows about, things like the immortal jellyfish and a whale that was only discovered a few years ago, and they kind of make a journey to and along the way they pick up more friends and different types of creatures. So it just kind of builds and builds. I really enjoyed the reading, and I can't wait to see what they do to it, because actors can do things that I certainly can't. I can make them the stuff, but they've got to bring it to life.
With a production like this, as you can see here on the screen, it's directed by Tanya Hayes, again, a Sea Turtle Saga, and it will be for children's theater. Children from schools from around the region will be able to come in and see it during the week, but there will be a community showing on Sunday, November 14th. That'll be in 2:30 in the McComas Hall Theater on the Mississippi State University campus, so you are welcome to attend. You can find tickets online through MSU Theatre, and we are delighted to have the audience come and join us. It's usually been a full show, even despite the pandemic and what we've been going through. We will participate with the proper social distancing and wearing the mask on campus. Tim Baker has been our guest. Tim, thank you so much for sharing your expertise here with us, here the audience, as well as with our students on campus. Thank you for joining us on Communication Connection. I'm Terry Likes. Thank you for watching Communication Connection. Please join us next time.